It's wedding day and our main characters are getting married. Or not. The story starts with the lunch order from our main character, Futaro Uesugi. One barbecue meal without the beef. Why? Because it's the cheapest. If you order the barbecue meal without the beef, you get a bowl of miso soup and pickled vegetables for the price of just a rice bowl, which is 200 yen. While sitting at his usual table, Futaro collides his lunch with someone else. A woman wearing a different school's uniform. They get into a verbal argument about whose table it is, and they both just end up sitting at the table. Futaro looks over at her lunch and notices that she bought over 1,000 yen worth of food. That's kind of on the pricey side for food. In Japan, everything is significantly cheaper. You can find a good bowl of ramen with the vegetables and everything inside for about 700 yen. I mean, the famous beast bowl in Japan is just meat, rice, and onions, and that only goes for 400 yen. Futaro chooses to ignore it and starts studying. The woman finds it rude and confronts him. He just wants to study and asks her to just leave him alone. Of course, she doesn't do that, and she thinks that his grades must suck if he has to study during lunch, and steals one of his tests to see what he got. He got 100%, and the girl asks him to tutor her. Futaro, completely ignoring the question, leaves, but the girl isn't backing down and offers him some free food, seeing that he only ate rice, miso soup, and pickled vegetables. Futaro denies it and tells her she should eat less or she will get fat. After leaving, he calls his little sister, Raya, and we learn that the family is in debt, and they just found a part-time job for Futaro to work at, which pays 5 times the standard rate. It's a tutoring job, and Futaro doesn't want to take it, but Raya convinces him to do so after telling him that they'll finally be able to eat to their heart's content. So who is this person that Futaro is supposed to tutor? Well, she's a high school student, and is transferring to a school. I wonder who it could be. Oh yes, of course. It's the girl that he met during lunch, Itsuki Nakano, and better yet, she's in his class. Futaro knows he messed up, so the next day during lunch, he tries to make it up to her, but before he can even talk to her, she sits down with 4 other girls. Itsuki, noticing this, has a smirk on her face and says that the table is full. One of the other girls at the table follows him and asks him if he's trying to get with Itsuki. Futaro causes a misunderstanding by saying not exactly, and after a little quarrel, the girl, who we learn is Ichika, tells him to go to her if he has any trouble. Futaro sits down, and as he's regretting his action with Itsuki, he hears his name, Uesugi-san. It's another one of those girls from the table, and she is finally relieved that he looked at her. He questions how she knew his name, and she says that she came to return something that he dropped. She pulls out 2 tests, one with 100% and one with 0%, and asks him which one his is. After saying that the test with the 100% is his, she acknowledges his honesty, and as a reward, she gives him both tests. Futaro asks whose test is a 0%, and she says it's hers. She's never seen anyone get 100% on a test before, and is amazed that it can even be done. She follows him everywhere, even into the changing rooms, and it turns out she was just looking for a thank you, something that Futaro still hasn't done. Futaro asks her to tell Itsuki that he apologizes, but she tells him that he's gotta do it himself. And so after school, he goes to apologize to Itsuki, but there's one problem. She's walking with 2 other people, and so he follows them. While hiding in a cardboard cutout, one of the girls notices and confronts him. Futaro, thinking that she's just questioning why he's in the cardboard cutout, tries to play this off as just his hobby, but she knows too much and asks if watching high school girls is his hobby. He asks her not to report him and to not tell her friend Itsuki, which she agrees on, but she makes one thing clear. Itsuki is not her friend. Confused, Futaro continues to follow them. When they get to a high-rise apartment that presumably Itsuki lives at, he's greeted by another girl who asks if he's a stalker. The other girl that made him earlier at the cardboard cutout appears, and before Futaro can even question her betrayal, she says that she didn't betray him at all and she didn't tell Itsuki. They say that Itsuki went home, so if he needs anything, they'll assist him. They can't help Futaro in this situation, so he tells them to just let them through. One of the girls gives him a death stare and tells him to go home. Futaro as a cover, so he lives there, and surprised, she just lets him through. But the other girl that made him out starts listing his order. 1 barbecue meal minus the barbecue. She is suspicious and asks him if he's on a diet. Futaro, not knowing what to do now, just makes a dash for the entrance. After seeing Itsuki get onto the elevator, he runs up to the 30th floor and finds her walking out of the elevator. Itsuki asks what he's doing here, and Futaro apologizes for yesterday. Itsuki wants nothing to do with Futaro and tells him to just go away as her private tutor will be showing up. Futaro explains that that tutor is him, and Itsuki profoundly refuses to be tutored by him, saying that our tutor just can't be someone like you. Her words saying that our tutor caught Futaro off guard, and just then, the other 4 girls at the lunch table walks out of the elevator. Itsuki reveals that they all live there, and that they're not actually friends. They're quintuplets. Futaro then walks into the house and gets on the phone with their father. His father explains that they are in fact quintuplets, and his job is to bring all 5 of them to graduation. The situation had already been explained to the quintuplets, and they would be waiting in the next room over. Except there was one problem. They weren't all waiting in the next room. Only one of them were, and that was the girl that gave him the 0 and 100% test paper. Her name is Yotsuba, and she explains that the other 4 went up to their rooms and takes Futaro to go grab them. First is Itsuki. She outright denies him. Next is the girl that made him out while he was spying, Miku, who is the smartest out of the 5. She outright denies him. Next is the girl that called him a stalker, Nino, who wasn't in her room. And lastly is the one that told him to come to her if he got into any trouble, Ichika. Yotsuba is a bit hesitant and warns Futaro not to be surprised when they walk into her room. To his surprise, Ichika's room is messy with clothes all over the place, and Ichika is just sleeping. After waking her up, he tells her to meet her in the living room. Upon leaving, Futaro is confronted by Miku, who asks him if he stole her gym clothes. After a little quarrel between the two, Nino calls for them and offers everyone cookies. But the clothes she's wearing, it's Miku's gym clothes. All but Itsuki is now around the table, and Futaro decides to start his tutoring. First, he prepares quizzes to see where they're all at, but no one's paying attention to him. Ichika and Yotsuba are too busy eating the cookies, and Miku and Nino are too busy fighting over Miku's gym clothes. Futaro realizes that these girls are kinda hopeless, and Nino ends up just offering him a cookie. She says that if he has a cookie, she'll take his quiz. So, Futaro naturally eats a cookie, and Nino offers him a glass of water. Futaro, right after drinking that water, turns over to Nino, who just says
Bye bye.
Turns out, Nino spikes the water, and next thing you know, Futaro is waking up in a taxi. The taxi driver tells them they arrive at their destination, and the total is 4,800 yen. Futaro panics as he doesn't have that kind of money, but to his surprise, Itsuki's in the front seat and hands the driver her credit card. She's going shopping and figure that she might as well just drop him off since it's on the way. She said she found his address in his student handbook, and Futaro asks if she saw the photo. Itsuki doesn't know what he's talking about and just ignores the question. She then states that if he learned his lesson, he would give up on being the private tutor. Futaro says that he can't do that, and before Itsuki can respond, his little sister Raiha comes out. She notices Itsuki, and Futaro tries to drag her back into the house, but while being dragged, Raiha finds out that that's the person he's tutoring and asks her if she wants to join him for dinner. After Raiha pulls off her guilty face, Itsuki reluctantly agrees. While waiting for Raiha to prepare dinner, the family engages in some small talk. Raiha asks how it went, and before Futaro can say anything, Itsuki says it went perfectly. Raiha, who's very happy after hearing that, declares that their debt problem is finally solved, and then dinner is served. The Uesugi special curry and fried eggs. After dinner, while Itsuki is getting ready to leave, Raiha instructs Futaro to walk Itsuki out and asks if she would like to join them for dinner some other time. Itsuki would love to join them for dinner, and walks out with Futaro. While waiting for a taxi, Itsuki explains to Futaro that she now understands the situation, but she still isn't willing to cooperate. It's nothing personal, but she wants to study herself and not rely on him. Futaro, getting an idea, says that she's a genius and tells Itsuki to make sure that her other 4 sisters are there tomorrow at the same time. The next day, all 5 sisters are gathered, and Futaro explains that if they don't need a tutor, then they should prove it to him. He takes out the quizzes from yesterday and tells them that if they get a passing score, he'll never approach them again. He will let them graduate on their own merits. The agreement was only that all 5 graduated, so to his logic, anyone that was currently passing, he didn't really need to focus on, and he could just focus on the failing students. Itsuki is the first one to agree to it and says that after she passes the test, she won't have to ever see him again. This eventually motivates everyone to take it, and Miku asks what a passing score is. Originally going to be 60, Futaro says that 50 is just good enough to pass his test. Nino scoffs at him and tells him that he should not underestimate the sisters. After taking the test, Futaro grades them and delivers the news. They all got 100 points, if you added up all the scores. Miku had the best score at 32 and Yotsuba had the worst at 8. Quickly, all 5 girls made a run for it as Futaro makes the realization that all 5 are in danger of failing, while also revealing that they transfer out of their last school because they failed. A day has gone by, and as Futaro is walking into school, he sees a black foreign car. Something he's never seen before. Upon closer inspection, the car, according to him, has to cost at least 1 million yen. And as he's staring into the window, the door opens, revealing the 5 sisters. After getting out of the car and greeting him, they all run again. Futaro pleads that he's unarmed, and they all stop, but definitely keep his distance just in case he tries something. The sisters once again tell him that they don't need a tutor, in which Futaro just responds, "In that case, then you reviewed the test from the other night, right?" and proceeds to ask the first question. Question 1. Who was the general that Moronari Mori defeated at the Battle of Itsukushima? Itsuki turns around and pouts, and the rest of the quintuplets just walk away. Futaro, thinking to himself, learned 2 big things over the past 3 days. 1 is that they hate studying, and 2, that they hate him. He concludes that he has to develop some kind of trust with them one at a time, and ends up noticing that Miku got that question on the test correct, but for some reason they didn't ask him when he answered that morning. So he meets her in the cafeteria and expects her order: a 350 yen sandwich and a mysterious drink, matcha soda. Miku says that because he's mean, she's not gonna let him try any. He says that he wants to talk to her about the question from this morning, but before Miku can even respond, Yotsuba interrupts them and asks him if he wants to eat lunch together. She then pulls out her English homework and shows Futaro that she got every single question wrong. Ichigo ends up interrupting that conversation and says to not only focus on studying, but to also just enjoy your youth with love and stuff. Futaro, who knows nothing but studying, becomes gloomy and budges on the thought of love. Yotsuba then just asks Miku if she likes anyone, and she gives a very hesitant, embarrassing no. Yotsuba says as her sister, she can definitely tell from the look on her face that Miku is in love with the guy. When Futaro returns back to his desk, he finds a letter addressed to him from Miku. The letter tells him to go to the rooftop during lunch. There's something she needs to tell him. She cannot fight these feelings. This completely phases Futaro as he worries that Miku might like him. After some thinking, he tries to convince himself that it's a prank. Waiting on the rooftop during lunch, he starts to become convinced that it's a prank. But then he hears a door open, and on the opposite side of it is Miku. She says that she wishes she could tell him in the cafeteria, but she didn't want anyone to hear. Futaro is now 100% convinced that Miku is in love with him, and the next word that came out of Miku's mouth was Harukata Sui. This confuses Futaro, and Miku just walks away, feeling relieved that she finally told him. After some thinking, Futaro just realizes it's the answer to the question he asked that morning. Wondering why she told him only now, he grabs Miku by the shoulder, startling her and making her drop her phone. Her phone lands face up and Futaro sees her lock screen. It's the Shingen Takeda crest. After Miku picks up her phone, she gloomily turns to Futaro and asks him if he saw it. Futaro says he did, and Miku embarrassingly tells him not to tell anyone that she likes Sengoku period warlords. Miku shares that all of it started when Yotsuba let her borrow a game, and she became attached to the warlords. But while all the girls in her class liked handsome actors and beautiful models, she liked old men with facial hair. She thinks it's weird, but Futaro says it's not, and uses this as an opportunity to get Miku into his tutoring session. He states that he has a lot of knowledge on warlords, and that he got a 100% on his last history test. Miku gets annoyed at his claim that he knows more than her and starts asking him questions. Futaro ends up answering all of them and realizes that history is what connects the two together. The bell rings and the next period's about to start, so to get Miku to attend his tutoring session, he says that he's going to make his next lesson about history, and encourages Miku to attend. Miku reluctantly finally agrees to attend, and while they're walking back, Miku buys Futaro a matcha soda as a token of their new friendship, jokingly saying that there's no snot in it. Futaro, confused, ends up convincing Miku that he doesn't actually know as much as he says he does, and there's nothing that he can teach her. Futaro, now determined to get back on her good side, heads to the library and checks out every single Sengoku period history book that they have. Later, Futaro sends Miku a letter to meet him outside and ends up challenging her to a duel. It's going to be a quiz on the Sengoku period, but Miku, still believing that he can't teach her anything, just refuses. Futaro threatens Miku that she's afraid to lose at a subject that she's good at, and Miku asks her first question. In Shingen Takeda's Wind, Forest, Fire, Mountain, what does the wind mean? Futaro answers correctly with, as fast as the wind, but Miku has already taken off running. While Futaro runs after Miku, he bumps into Yotsuba, and tells him that Miku went that way. Running that way, she runs into Yotsuba, and tells her that her doppelganger is back there and that she is going to die. Futaro questions certain parts of the other Yotsuba, who changes out and reveals herself to be Miku, dressed as Yotsuba. Running again, Futaro explains that in the past 2 days, he's looked through every single book in the library relating to the Sengoku period, and now he's confident that he can talk to her on equal terms. Miku calls this a lie and continues running. Miku eventually gives in and says that they'll play Warlord Shiritori, which is a word game where you have to make another word with the ending letter. But for this game, it needs to be the name of Warlords. After constant back and forth between the two while also running, Miku got tired and couldn't take it anymore and collapses into the grass. While she's cooling down, Futaro goes to buy her matcha soda and tells her that there's no salt in it, revealing the story behind the joke to her and revealing that he looked everywhere but couldn't find the story, so he ended up just going to ask Yotsuba. Miku annoyingly asked him if he told Yotsuba that she liked warlords, and Futaro confidently just replied that he didn't. But there's no reason to keep it a secret from her sisters, and that she should be taking pride in having that kind of hobby. Miku says that she can't tell her sisters precisely because they're her sisters, and that she's the biggest washout out of the 5. Futaro reassures her that's not the case, as she also just got the highest score out of the 5 on the quiz, and realizes that she just lacks confidence in herself. That's when Miku says that she can tell that if she can do something, the others can too, because of the quintuplets. This made Futaro realize something. Reassuring Miku that he's going to make sure that they graduate, Miku brings up the fact that together they could only get 100 points. Futaro explains that she just gave him confidence and pulls out a paper that states which answers each of them got right. He asks Miku if she realizes anything weird about the test, and she points out that none of the correct answers were on the same question, in which he tells Miku that what she just said to him proves that if one can do it, they all can. He believes that all 5 of them have the potential to score 100%. Later on, during a tutoring session which only Yotsuba shows up to, Miku suddenly shows up and heads straight to the Sengoku Warlord books to check out the checkout cards. Futaro's name is indeed written on all of them, and Miku thinks that just maybe, she can do it, so he better take responsibility for getting her hopes up. Yotsuba, absolutely surprised by Miku's confidence, goes up to Miku and whispers into her ear, asking if she's the one that he likes. With a smile on her face, Miku declines, saying, "No, not a chance." The next day, Futaro arrives at the quintuplets apartment. All of them are home and they don't seem to be running away this time. Yotsuba is ready to learn along with Ichika and Miku. Itsuki says she's going to study by herself at a nearby table. Miku wants Futaro to teach her history like he promised, but that's when Nino steps out of her room and tells him that she hopes he doesn't fall asleep this time. Futaro, resisting every urge in his body to lash out at her, just smiles and asks her if she would like to join them, which quickly shot down as she said that she would rather die than study with him. Nino then walks down the stairs and calls out to Yotsuba, telling her that the basketball team is looking for a temporary member for the tournament because their main player got injured, and if they can't find anyone, they'd have to forfeit the tournament. Using guilt against Yotsuba, she apologizes to Futaro and runs out, saying that she can't ignore people in trouble. Nino then goes to Ichika and reminds her that she needs to get to work, and then tells Itsuki that it'll be better and she can concentrate harder if she just goes to the library, leaving just Miku there. Nino then walks over to Miku and tells her to go buy a drink for her since Miku ended up drinking hers. Well, Miku already has bought that drink, and tells Futaro to start his tutoring session. Nino, absolutely shocked by this, asks Miku when they got so friendly and asks her if she's into homely guys. Miku annoyingly tells Nino that she only cares about looks, and the two get into a massive fight. Miku tells Nino to stop bothering the two of them, and Nino challenges Miku to a cook-off to settle it. Miku accepts the challenge, disregarding Futaro's claims that it's just a trap, and after cooking for a couple hours, Nino makes a beautiful Dutch baby with seasoned vegetables and uncured ham, and Miku makes an interesting looking rice omelette. Miku, embarrassed by her cooking, says that she'll just eat it herself, but Futaro insists on trying both dishes. To their surprise, both dishes actually just taste fine and Nino admits defeat, but it's too late. Futaro just calls it for the day, but he did learn one thing. Nino, for some reason, absolutely hates his guts. Futaro tells Miku that he doesn't think he'll ever be able to work it out between those two, but Miku just brushes it off and tells him that if he approaches her in good faith, she'll eventually just come around. Upon leaving the apartment, Futaro realizes that he left his wallet inside and rings the intercom to ask if he could be let back in. Miku picks up and tells him she's in the shower but he can come up and get it. Futaro walks back into the apartment and sees who he thinks is Miku blow drying her hair. She looks at him and says nothing, so he just goes to grab his wallet, but he suddenly realizes it only took him a couple minutes to head up, and Miku said that she was in the shower, so she couldn't have taken a shower this fast. Suddenly he starts to hear a voice. It's Nino, and she thinks that Futaro is Miku. He tells him that her contact's on the usual shelf, and she tells him to get it for her. Futaro realizes that Nino's eyesight is terrible, and she doesn't notice that it's him, not Miku. While looking for the contacts, Nino starts talking about the stunt that she pulled during lunch, and she feels bad about it, saying that she got a little carried away. She thinks Miku is mad at her and she starts walking over to where Futaro is. The contacts aren't over there and Nino goes to get them herself, coming within only a couple feet of Futaro. Startled, Futaro makes a run for it, leading Nino to confirm that Miku is in fact mad at her. Then she tells him that it's all his fault. He just barged into the apartment, all because the father told him to. The house is for them 5 and there's no room for him in there. Then Nino decided she will forbid him from entering and exiting this apartment. While saying that, she hit her hand on the shelf and books started to tip over. Futaro quickly runs over to shout to Nino and pushes the books out of the way, landing him in an awkward position. Nino finally realizes that it's Futaro, and the scene just ends up cutting to Ichika, who was dropped off at home. The driver thanks her for her hard work today, and it cuts to Yotsuba. They won their basketball match, and the captain asks her to officially join the team. Then it cuts to Miku, who's in the shower and is in deep thought about what Nino and Yotsuba said, asking if she liked Futaro. Then it cuts to Itsuki, who is walking back into the apartment. Seeing them in an awkward position, she snaps a picture with the phone, calling Futaro a creep.